Amin El-Hassan will be here shortly, embittered and furious because he's working too much. Oddball is something you can catch every day except for Monday. Every day except for Monday because it's oddball. And so it's not every day. Lucy and Jessica will be doing a weekly college football segment with us, and I do want to talk to them about some of the things going on this weekend because Lucy's a crazy person.
Thank you.
But I wanted to start with Mike Ryan because I felt for Mike Ryan this weekend, not just because, for a game at least, he was loud wrong, but also the unpleasantness of being on the wrong side in sports of something that other people seem to be enjoying. The Deion Sanders story at Colorado, it's not just that Deion paid for himself on day one. Did you guys see the number that Colorado Texas A&M did as a rating? That is not a good time slot. It's only a good time slot for sports. Saturday at noon doesn't get $7.2 million people.
That's crazy for TCU Colorado. Crazy.
7.2 million people represent more than any other football game got on television that day. It represents the biggest number that Big Noon Saturday has ever gotten. And I wanted to ask you, Mike, because there are plenty of people who have now, for reasons that I'm unclear on, it may just be because Deion is a loudmouth, and for better or worse, polarizing is good for television, but is going to get people on the other side. Not everyone's going to celebrate this. But you think you're very worried for America's kids, America's students, because Deion is doing things.
I was wondering where you were going to go with this.
Differently. Well, I could go anywhere, though, because you were very publicly against them being any good. And at the very least, no matter whether TCU is a fraud or not this year, they're going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
And offensively, they're going to be competent.
Yeah, I think they'll be able – I think they've proven that they're going to move the ball. Now, I don't think they're going to move the ball to the tune of 500 passing yards and forcing – 22 missed tackles from the other team against a team that was, even though a national runner-up, a disaster defensively. I understand why I'm being positioned as that, because I was the only person on this show to be like, hey, this is new and it's unconventional and they're a bad team. So if that makes me a hater, it makes me a hater. I'm also the only person on this show that's actually donated to Deion Sanders and his school prior to. So I don't know how it can be both.
You don't know that.
A lot of Jackson
tax
State.
returns?
All right.
We've known each other like
you were loud, Mike. You were loud that they were going to be bad.
No, I wasn't loud that they were going to be bad. I was loud in that I don't think that he deserves to be paid more than Kyle Whittingham. And you're always a subscriber to the chaos theory, and I understand why Deion works for you. I'm skeptical. I think it's right. I was rightfully skeptical. And this, who could have foreseen that? It's already a hugely successful year. I think it's a huge overreaction to beating a TCU team that might very well end up being bad. I mean, what do you
but no, hold on a minute. However bad they will be, they will not be as bad as Colorado was last year.
No, Colorado, they're so much better. Colorado was, for the last few years, outside of one Mel Tucker year, they were really bad. It's already a smashing success. But I also think it's a bit of an overreaction. I think both things can be true, and you can have an overreaction to week one. I think I saw a stat from DraftKings Sportsbook that 97% of the betting public is on Colorado this week against Nebraska, and it's only a 3-point line. And I think that game's probably the most fascinating of the weekend to me, because if Matt Rule and Nebraska fall to 0-2, that's incredible.
It's wild to call that the most fascinating game of the weekend when El Assico is this week.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I love Mike being like, Kyle Whittingham should make more money than Deion freaking Sanders, who's like independently famous if he had never touched a football ever again past the age of like 35. You get paid more when you're super famous. That's how it works. Doesn't matter if you're a better coach or not.
Okay.
I think a part that's interesting with Deion.
He's Deion Sanders.
Wait, David Sampson?
No,
Did he just show up?
It's fair. I noticed what was happening during that game. It's like, oh, I'm going to be called the hater for just saying, I think that this is without precedent and something far more likely to not work out than it did. And after one game, I'm willing to come to you hat in hand and say, yeah, I was wrong. It's going way better than I thought. I never thought in a million years they'd upset
But what's the
TCU.
But what's the overreaction to that, though, right? Because I don't think anyone is making the conclusion, oh, they're going to win the championship. They're going to be 9-3. I don't think people are making those leaps. I think they're saying, holy shit, that surprised us. Wow, that's surprising. And 7.2 million people watched it because they added this element of fame. Because it doesn't have to just be somebody who's X's and O's. These guys are all figureheads for their universities. They are all fundraisers for their athletic departments and for their schools and for their libraries. They are all prestige grabbers for your institution. So what is the overreaction to, oh, biggest rating Big Noon has ever gotten? What is the overreaction to, nobody played a college football game this weekend on television that drew bigger numbers than people wanting to see, hey, what's Deion got going on over there?
I'd say as far as Colorado, they're better than I thought they were going to be this year. But my major question surrounding Deion in that position is what'll happen when Coach Prime gets dealt with adversity? What will happen when they go on a 2-game losing skid? And I don't think that's necessarily something that's talked about right now because they just beat the national runner-up and everything's amazing and they're going to throw for 500 yards every game.
What will happen, though, Mike, is content. Like, he is a fountain of content. He's got Coach Prime on Amazon Video. Everything he's doing is videotaped. He is culturally relevant in his 50s in some of the same ways he was in his athletic prime. To me, those are... He makes he makes Colorado matter by virtue of standing on their sideline.
Yeah, they matter. They matter, and he does make them matter, and he made them
winning.
matter before he got there.
But that's winning.
No, winning is winning. I think winning is winning.
That is also important, but after one game, what he's given you is both. He's given you winning you didn't expect, and he's given you winning that pays for his entire contract. Pays for all of it. He is now underpaid, Mike. He's underpaid.
See, that it always gets me because no, he's not.
Mike, they got $28 million in donations because he signed up.
Yeah, that's what they say. Yes, and he still has a lot of challenges coming his way that he articulated in terms of resources. And hopefully, I liked it when Colorado was good. I think it's good for college football. And like I said, I've donated to Deion Sanders in the past. I am also personalizing this because, man, if they're good, it's going to be really hard for the program that I back specifically. That is a monster to deal with. And I know that he carries himself unconventionally. He carries himself like Deion Sanders. There's a lot of bravado there. He does a lot of things that even in the murky world of college football is kind of looked down on. Hell, there was video of him going up to what I've been told is projected to be a first-round draft pick at corner, that kid Newton, going up to him right after the game, and I see a lot of potential in you. I mean, I've heard that he's FaceTiming with players in opposing locker rooms. Like, he goes about things a very different way. And if he has that program cooking, like after 1 week, it certainly looks like they're well on their way, they're going to be really difficult to deal with. Really difficult.
I think that it's fair to wait for more data before we decide like how good this team actually is. But I also think you have to give the man credit, which I'm not saying you're not doing, but like I doubted Colorado. I thought after turning over your entire roster and taking over a team that was 1-11 last year, it would be really difficult to win big games. They've already won a game that I thought they would lose. They were 20-point underdogs. A lot of people thought they were going to lose that game. And now you look at the rest of the schedule, and if they play the way they did against TCU, there's a lot more wins in the win column than you thought before the season started. So, yeah, I think he gets credit, and I think also we will wait and see because preseason rankings don't really matter. They don't mean anything in college football. There's no preseason. We don't know how good any team is, especially in the portal era. And it's not until like week 5 or 6 when you start having teams play in the conference and play against other teams in the conference and compare and contrast results that you can actually determine how good a team really is. And even then, no one agrees on anything in college football. That's what makes the sport fun, is that we get to argue for hours on end about has Colorado played anybody yet?
It's
they
such
haven't
a great
played
sport.
anybody.
It's such a great sport in that respect too, because I can come into it with a certain amount of backstory and knowledge that I think could apply to what I think their season's going to be and when it comes to forecasting, and I could be totally wrong. Totally wrong, as I was spectacularly wrong against TCU. But at the same time, I look at that D-line, see a lot of tiny bodies. I see a team that, once they get into the war of attrition that is a college football season, is not very deep. And I don't think that they're this – to rank them 22nd when you consider what their preseason ranking might have been, which is at the bottom of FBS, with one performance where you took a historically bad defense and beat them up, and they played so poorly. They're bad, and on top of that, they played poorly. I think it's a huge overreaction, but at the same time, I understand why the layperson is just like, yeah, that's why you go get Coach Prime.
This is the part that I don't get, though. If it's the biggest win in program, the last 30 years of the program, 20 years of the program, whatever it is you want to measure it by, when Jessica says he's getting too much credit, or you're saying overreaction, my question to you and the audience is...
I didn't say that.
You did. You just got...
No, I said Mike was saying that. I did not say... I said he should get a lot of credit.
Okay.
Just to clear the air.
I thought that you were making...
The Colorado fans are loud.
I don't understand why we don't agree on what the proper amount of credit.
Stugotz said that yesterday. That's who you're thinking of. I'm
be.
Stugotz. He's Stugotz.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it, because I was going to say it as soon as you said it, because you may have been framing it on behalf of Mike. My objection remains,
I'll
though.
do the Amin voice next time.
What is the proper reaction? What is the proper amount of respect? Because I think you're allowed to hyperventilate on the biggest number. And the biggest number...
I don't think you should hyperventilate. I think hyperventilation is an overreaction. I'm just saying, I'm skeptical because the Coach Prime brand is built on the things that we saw on Saturday. And if he loses to Nebraska, where are we going to be pointing fingers at?
They matter. A game against Nebraska featuring Colorado matters. It doesn't matter whether they win or lose it.
Okay, I'll just lean into the Colorado hater stuff. What I was alluding to and tiptoed around is I wasn't such a huge fan of how Coach Sanders approached this season, approached some of his discussions with players, how he goes about recruiting certain players. I think it to be dirty pool in a game that's basically dirty pool anyways. And I have so many hypocrisies showing when it comes to what I've said previously about changing regimes over here in Miami. But I don't want it to work so spectacularly well. I don't want it to work as well as it might seem after 1 week, because I do think that the way he's approached things can be called into question. I do think that it would breed a lot of copycats, and I think that makes an already super dangerous sport. And I'm not just talking about what's happening on the field. Talking about all the ambiguity in different states surrounding all these rules.
Lawlessness.
Yeah,
you have a
he's
renegade.
a bigger outlaw. He's a bigger renegade and outlaw than anybody. And I'm not going to be worried about the kids guy like I've been in the past, because I already sound very pearl clutchy. But I think it's going to be a fascinating case study. And I'm not willing to call it a success after 1 week, in part because I'm kind of afraid to.
I think something is, we've seen this before, but at much smaller scales. When Lincoln Riley did this at USC, he did get rid of players, but it wasn't the entire roster. And yes, you've seen USC have like increased success way beyond when Lincoln was there. They still haven't gotten to the promised land quite yet. It's one of those things where, like, I don't want it to work in the sense of, like, I don't want it to be the norm. I don't want kids to get pushed out of school time and time again. And yes, I know I'm like what Mike doesn't want to be, and the watch out for the kids. But I was in college like 3 minutes ago. I sympathize with them.
Yeah. Like, Lucy, a bunch of kids had Coach Prime walk into their locker room with a camera crew, and he basically told them, F off. I'm bringing Louis. And it's... And knowing how he approached things in Jackson State and seeing how that's playing out in Colorado, he's not really going to change his MO. And I still think you can meet it with a bit of scrutiny. And I understand you're drawn to the chaos factor. And yeah, let's light a flame to all of this. I'm just a little hesitant to be all aboard it because there are certain things about it that feel icky in a sport that's already icky.
Wouldn't there be almost an argument that he's accelerating the path toward us getting toward the solution, though? Right? Because there's so many coaches like Mario Cristobal, for example, right? Who's this big time recruiter in the new NIL world, and we're going to spend the next 5 to 10 years figuring out how that works until eventually we ultimately get college football to a place where it's almost overregulated and you have a salary cap and you have all the things that these pro leagues have. So why not set fire to it now with somebody like Deion who might have success, and then we see the copycats fail and we finally have to figure out, okay, what's the right solution for this league?
I agree with that in the sense that you haven't had any coach where so many other coaches have come out publicly and been like, I don't like what Deion is doing. I am not cool with that. And when they start to get together and get angry, the NCAA has had no sort of like rule over the sport whatsoever. They're looking for their moment to come back in and be like, hey, remember us? We're in charge. And I do think this could all lead to that.
I'm so skeptical that anything will ever happen in the sport that is good for college football players. Like, and also it's like if he in a roundabout way causes like positive change in college football, do you have to hand it to him? I don't know. I don't know about that, Jer Bear.
Given how he talked to kids that he had just met, I am worried for what his reaction will be, because right now it's great being Coach Prime. You can give those halftime press conferences where you're like the Heisman would be chilling at his house, or you could single out members of the media for not believing in you, and all that stuff plays so well, especially with your fan base after you had the us against the world win. How is it going to go if they lose? Because that bravado will flip on a dime, and it'll start blaming others, including kids, if they struggle.
No, I think we're all kind of waiting for that first loss. How does he approach that? Because it's very easy to celebrate beating TCU, a ranked TCU team. It's just, man, my heart can't stop thinking about the athletic story when they interviewed the Colorado kids who were asked to leave, and they were like, yeah, Deion didn't talk to me the entire time I was there. He came in with the expectation of, I'm not going to let these kids go. I'm going to make these kids go. And like, I know that college football is not like the compass of morality, but a small part of me still wants to believe there's something that should be this way, you know?
I just think we should be careful to single out Deion Sanders for doing stuff that a lot of other coaches have been doing for a long time. And I think his fame and the way that he does things is like a particular brand that people want to root against, which is why I think it's important to give him credit when he's successful, but also like the same when it's Lincoln Riley or any other head coach, when they're doing things that are not in the best interests of college football players, we should call them out too.
1,000%, Jess, and we have to look at this as it's a black head coach, first time in this
opinionated.
Yeah,
one.
it's a black head coach with not a ton of experience. He's already been a head coach at Jackson State, but that is a huge part of how people are going to be talking about this. And I'm talking about Deion Sanders really as an avatar for a larger issue, but even though roster turnover exists, certainly more in the NIL age. Mel Tucker had all of his success previously at Colorado by turning over the roster. He got to Michigan State, and 1 year in, it looked like a genius because he turned over a roster. There are coaches that go about talking to these kids, understanding that, hey, you're not a fit here. We're going to help you land on your feet somewhere else. And I think totally ignoring somebody and playing this style of pool, to me, it's not my favorite.
I feel like I am looking right now into an oddly distorted funhouse mirror. Mm-hmm. Mike Ryan sounds like a grandfather. Mm-hmm. Lucy, she has a baby on board now. Mm-hmm. She's an old woman protecting the futures of kids from mean coaches. He is an imperfect pioneer. For Mike Ryan to be voicing his discomforts in protection of the University of Miami program because of the future adversity that Colorado might face that will be a content factory for us, because Deion's going to step in it. And Deion is going to be what these coaches all are in these press conferences that stink when Saban's not giving you his depth chart week one because he's so protective. He's here to break the model. He's not going to do it perfectly. There's going to be collateral damage all over the place, but he can't have done it more successfully than he did out the gate. It's not possible to come out stronger than video everything I'm doing, make me the center of attention. Let's do a giant television number when all college football is made for television spectacle. And you have seen the greed is changing the way sports entities do business and changing the way all of us are going to consume college football the next few years as it becomes more overtly, obviously, professional football in disguise. Like, it's just a cheaper brand of football. And, of course, Deion, like all these coaches, is going to use all those kids as a stepping stone. He already did it at Jackson State as a stepping stone to his next career move because, surprise, Deion is one of the most famously selfish athletes ever, a mercenary of the highest order, and he sees a business opportunity here.
First of all, I respect Mike for admitting, at least in part, even though I think it's a big part of it, you don't want to see him succeed because it's not fair. You've struggled so much down here and waiting for that turnaround, the easy turnaround.
Oh,
and this
if he
guy
turns
just
it around in 1 year in the mountains, I'm screwed.
cartwheels in. It's on his existing players, kicks them out the door, engages in all types of weird NIL recruitment, and then comes out here and just is a massive success right out the gate. It makes Mario Cristobal look like, wait a second, what the hell have you been doing over here, buddy? Like that's
Yeah, if you want to do the direct comparison, you have someone parachute in and fix things right away, or at least that's what the optics are one game in.
Right.
And you have a coach down here that I support, that I donate to the program with, and I'm like, I would sign up for that plan. That seems exciting.
Colorado is not a destination, neither as a location nor as a university, right?
It's as a location, it is.
You think kids in L.A. and in Texas and Florida want to go play forget about Prime, want to go to Colorado?
Everyone that goes to Colorado is from LA. They call it UC, like, I think it's University of Colorado or California at Boulder. Everyone goes.
I'm talking about the athletes. I'm not talking about.
No, they all are from LA.
They're from LA?
Yeah, everyone, like, LA goes straight to Boulder. It's definitely a destination school.
That's why they call it UCLA.
Yeah.
Oh.
If I may,
I always wondered.
if this plays out over the course of the football season the way it did last Saturday, where they are so much better than anyone expected this quickly, he'll be there 8 months. And he'll actually go to a school with real resources.
But I'm okay with him changing the entirety of the structure so the coaches who are making $80 million have yet more pressure on them. Yeah, maybe Norvell would be out at FSU already if there was a new standard where no one's going to wait around for FSU, for him to put the L in Norvell and everybody to be laughing at him. He's turned it around. And usually that does take time. And I suspect this will take time too, by the way, because I don't think they're going to be great this year. But I root for them to be great. And I think if you're not rooting for them to be great, it's almost classic hating. You're just saying, I don't want him to succeed. Why? Because that's bad for me.
Yes. So initially I pushed back on the notion, hey, don't project hater. I've donated to Deion in the past. No, I'm a hater.
Man.
I don't want this to work.
Let him wear it like.
Don't want it to work.
That's what college football is all about.
Right.
Hating is more fun than loving.
Yes.
I hate everyone else more than I love my alma mater.
So
That's just how it works.
Give me your mentions. Give it all to me. I welcome it. I don't want this to work.
Yeah.
Because if it works, I'm royally.
Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Is hating more fun than loving?
It's amazing. It's such an amazing feeling.
Feels so good.
I'm going to embrace it. I feel so free. I don't have to pretend like I'm not a hater.
Watching LSU
I hate
lose.
it. I don't want it to work. One game and they beat the national runner-up. One game. I've waited 20 years. I hate him.
Let it go.
I hate Deion Sanders.
Be free.
I hate Colorado. I hate their fans. I don't want it to work. I need it to not work. Oh, why is it working? Stop working.